Hello again everybody and welcome to Back to Basics Gaming. Before we get back to the basics, let's set the foundation for this review. Much like Marvel, Detective Comics, aka DC, has been around for a long time. Many opportune moments have come about to cash in on DC heroes as well, most notably Batman and Superman. So, we pretty much already know the drill here. Let's check out a few DC games and see if those who cashed in on such popular characters should be considered heroes or villains. First up is Justice League Task Force for the Sega Genesis. It's a fighting game and has the most famous characters from the Justice League, such as Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. When the main menu pops up, we get a few things to choose from, such as Hero Mode, which is really just story mode, and it's okay for letting the computer pick predetermined fights for you, but don't expect anything like a good story from this game. Which, in its own right, is very ironic since these characters come from a company that thrives off of telling stories. So, anyways, everything else is self-explanatory on this screen, so let's check out our options. Well, that's good. Everything looks pretty basic in the options as well, so I guess we'll check out Hero Mode. So, along with the heroes I stated earlier, you can also choose from Aquaman, why anyone would want to do that is beyond me, Green Arrow, and The Flash. The music is pretty good on this character select screen too. So after picking your character, you get some weak storyline, and then the game has you fighting one of your friends. In this case for me, it's Batman. The game controls are very responsive, but the sound effects are terrible and the in-game music here just sucks. Batman's level design is also very bland too, just a rooftop with a bat signal in the background. Should I expect better? Well, I guess the jury is out on that one. For example, remember the backgrounds in Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat? Let's look at one background each from those games and see what we get. In Chun-Li's stage for Street Fighter II Champion Edition on Sega Genesis, her stage is what I would consider very detailed. We have people bike riding, some guy choking his chicken, a family of 3 watching on as the chaos ensues, this guy in the background loving every minute of the free fight, and even some lady doing her laundry or cleaning or something. Wow, what a lot of life this screen has. It's not just you and your opponent. It clearly shows that the rest of the world doesn't stop because you two decided to start duking it out. Now the next example, though not as good, is still better than Justice League. In Mortal Kombat, we get this level that has many monks sitting down and looking on at the action. Sure, they're moving around their seats like someone poured honey down their robes and let loose a bunch of fire ants, but still, it's things happening. In the distance, we also get the endgame boss, Shang Tsung, watching his competition beat the piss out of each other. Furthermore, the background has depth to it. Though not as impressive as the China stage in Street Fighter II, still very good. Now, let's go back to Justice League and analyze it. But before we do that, let's also take note that Street Fighter II Champion Edition was released for home consoles and arcade in 1992, and Mortal Kombat was released for home consoles in 1993. Justice League Task Force was released in 1995, 2 years later. I'm going to heavily compare Justice League to these two games. First off, the graphics, sound effects, and music are no good at all from this standpoint. And the level design here is boring and bland. Occasionally you'll get some flashing in the background, I guess that's supposed to be lightning. And speaking of lightning, look at that squiggly drawing in the background. Is this supposed to be lightning? Yeah, I think so, but it's just there. It doesn't move or anything. Even when the screen flashes, it just stays there. How embarrassing. Pair this up with crappy building backdrops, and there you go. How about adding some lightning that actually moves and strikes randomly, and some better drawn buildings? Earth to the artist. Just because it's dark out here doesn't mean we can't see that this backdrop is half-assed. They could have maybe threw in some elements to show you it's windy and add some rain and maybe, just maybe, I don't know, some bats? I mean, sure, I know bats don't follow Batman around all day, but it would have fit the mood a bit better. Hell, toss in some birds or some airplanes off in the distance. I don't know, just add something. Like, yeah, level designers, I know my main focus is to fight Batman, but that doesn't mean you get a free pass to neglect your job. Oh, and it's not just this level either. Let's look at another. You want to talk about boring? Here, look at this. It's just Flash and Green Arrow beating the piss out of each other in a park. A place where by all means should be inhabited by people, especially during the day. But nope, not a single person in sight to capture or witness such a fight occur. How about Wonder Woman's stage? I don't even need to say anything here. The level design is terrible. But hey, as long as the gameplay is solid, then screw the backgrounds, right? Well, I suppose so, except there's just one problem with that. The gameplay sucks too! Each character only gets a few moves to use. You can perform them by inputting Street Fighter-esque types of commands. I like to consider myself a decent Street Fighter player, so when I input my commands in Street Fighter, it's usually always correct. And here, that's not the case. Most of the time it feels like I input them at a 50% ratio. Maybe it's just me, I'm not sure. Oh, and since this game is on the Sega, it's one of them games that you have to press a start button to switch between punches and kicks. But this isn't the game's fault. It's Sega's fault for not making a controller with enough buttons. I know they made a 6-button controller, but most of my friends, including myself, just had the regular 3-button controller. So yeah, I went off on a tangent before I was able to tell you the premise. Well, I didn't pay attention much, but I believe Darkseid has either brainwashed the other Justice League characters or replaced them with evil versions of themselves. Either or, who gives a crap? But it's up to you to fight all of them, and then a couple of Darkseid's cronies, and then Darkseid himself. Well, this game was super easy until I got to Cheetah. I mainly just kept sweeping all my opponents, and then Cheetah happened, and she just kicked my ass. I would have tried to beat this game, and it does let you continue, but it's one of those games that doesn't show you how many continues you have left. It's just over after so many are used. I think you get 3. I'm not sure. And look at this! I know Cheetah is supposed to be fast, but she's faster than the Flash. How the hell does that happen? Flash is the fastest man alive, so I guess she's the fastest woman then, huh? Anyways, I couldn't make it to Darkseid, but the 2-player option and versus mode will allow you to control every character in the game.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
All the Justice League Task Force manages to do here is prove to be an injustice to gamers and comic fans alike. Next game. Next on the list is Batman Returns for the SNES. When the game starts up, I'm surprised to see that it was developed by Konami. Well, if anyone knows Bat's best, it's Konami. The options are standard, so let's start up the first level. Batman has a number of moves here, such as punches, kicks, and he can throw his batarang to stun enemies, or take out motorcyclists with ease. Almost instantly, we know what kind of game we have here, a beat-em-up. I'm not against this for a Batman game, and actually think it's a good idea, but as stated in my Mighty Morphin Power Rangers review for SNES, I like beat-em-ups the most when there's an option to have a second player join in on the fun. I understand there was no Robin in Batman Returns, so unlike not having a 2-player option for Power Rangers, not having it in Batman makes perfect sense. So just get ready to fly solo and lay down the law Batman style on Penguin's goons. I always thought it was funny how Penguin had clown henchmen in this movie. Shouldn't the Joker have the clown henchmen? Well, either way, there's plenty of enemies to beat down here. The graphics are nice and very vibrant, even for a Batman game. The controls are very responsive and feel loose, and the sound effects are nice. But where the game really shines bright is the music. Many of composer Danny Elfman's compositions are in the game and translated very well onto the game cart. Very movie-esque music definitely sets the tone for this game. A few drawbacks it has is that the game is kind of hard. Thankfully, the options menu gives you various difficulties to choose from, including easy. Another gripe is sometimes you feel Batman doesn't have great reach. His main punching attack has a very small range to it, so you have to get up close and personal to a lot of enemies, which will then in turn expose you and allow them to get some hits off on you. Though the controls are very responsive, it just doesn't have that same feeling like when you play Streets of Rage. Maybe it's just me, but I compare a lot of beat-em-ups to this game, and whether we can deem that fair or not, it's just a standard that I myself have personally set for beat-em-ups. I guess that's why I didn't really care much for this title. But, just bear with me here for a moment. It's nothing personal to the game, and I think I already made it clear that I love Konami in my past reviews, but it just seems to be missing something. Perhaps it just didn't age well, or maybe because of the fact that it isn't two-player, but it just couldn't keep my attention. If I played this game as a kid, I would have most certainly loved it, but here now as an adult, I really just couldn't get that spark from it that I'm sure a lot of people did. I apologize if this doesn't seem fair, but in no way am I saying that this is a bad game. Just on a personal level, it didn't do much for me. But I can look past that and see why this should be acknowledged as a solid game. Anyways, it's hard to really review a beat 'em up. There's only so much to say, such as move from left to right, beat up enemies, collect items, fight boss, rinse and repeat. So with a decent moveset, pretty graphics, and awesome music, Batman Returns is what I believe to be a triumphant return for fans of beat 'em ups and Batman alike. Next we got the Man of Steel himself. It's Superman for the Sega Genesis. So in this game, you obviously take control of Superman and have to punch and platform your way to the end of the level. There is some flying involved, but you can only fly at certain parts in the game. This is already the first issue. I'm Superman. The first thing I think of when I hear his name is being invulnerable to almost anything, hence the nickname Man of Steel, but then the second thing I think of is flying. But nope, not here. At the beginning of the stage, just get ready to punch your way through very generic enemies and robots. Besides not having the option to fly at will, you can't use all of your abilities at will either. For example, in this segment of the stage, all you can do is punch. Where's my heat vision and frost breath? Well, to answer that in a very vague way, every now and again you'll find these S tokens. Picking them up will allow Superman to do various things, such as a super punch, or spin around like an idiot and make your way to the next section of the stage. The spin ability is very unnecessary, and you can't even call it an ability. I mean, sure, I guess you can, but you can't use it for anything in the game except when the game tells you to use it. Using heat vision was a bit different. I had it right off the bat when I got to the second part of the first level. Why can't you just use these abilities at will? Well, let's break it down a bit. A traditional Genesis controller only has 3 buttons. One to jump, one to attack, and another to use your ability. So yeah, not enough buttons to accommodate every ability Superman has. But why not just have all the abilities available to the player via the pause screen and have the player pick whichever one they want to use? Or even better, why not have certain button combinations or D-pad inputs like in Street Fighter to perform the ability? Why are we stuck with only one ability at a time? He's Superman. He shouldn't have his moves limited to some crappy ability pickup, or be able to use it when the game decides. So, other than that, the game just isn't fun. The platforming is boring and weak, the enemies cheap and generic, and Superman is too small on screen in my personal opinion. He looks puny when next to a lot of enemies. That's not super at all. The one thing I'll admit the game does have going for itself is the music, but that's literally it. It's hard to have fun in a game when your main attack is just some boring punch and the game governs how Superman will use his abilities. To put it another way, Superman on the Sega Genesis makes me want to take a brick made of kryptonite and smash it into a million pieces. Next game, here's a bonus game. Justice League Heroes The Flash for the Game Boy Advance. It starts up with the game logo and some very decent, dare I even say, good music playing. I'm a little surprised that they decided to do a Flash game, but the title Justice League Heroes may hint that there are more or it was a failed idea, so I'm not sure on that. Anyways, there's a story mode and extras. The extras screen is blank for now, so it's cool to know you can actually unlock stuff in this game. A nice incentive for any completionist. Well, let's pick story mode and see what we got. It starts with Flash talking to other Justice League members, and then we go into the first stage. Now, when the level starts up, the music is very good, and the sound effects are very solid as well. The objective of the game is to make your way through the area and then fight a boss. Flash can punch and also perform a kick if both the A and B button are pushed at the same time. What's even more cool is that he's very fast when he moves about. Very nice to see they actually are sticking true to this character, because I certainly did not feel like the Flash in Justice League Task Force, especially after seeing how fast Cheetah was. Anyways, Flash's arsenal of badassery doesn't end here. You can actually zip to your opponents with the press of a button and start wailing on them. Very cool and very useful when multiple enemies are in sight. Just zip from one to the other and move on. The game does have some exploration to it, but not much. This game really reminds me of X-Men Legends or Marvel Ultimate Alliance. It has that top-down sort of view, and you just move around the map as you please. Speaking of map, all you have to do is press start to see your position. I actually like this method better than an on-screen map, since the GBA screen obviously has its limitations. Now, let's go over the really good stuff. Flash can actually slow down time at will so long as he has some juice in that lightning bolt located at the top of the screen. You can turn this on and off Max Payne style and really get the cheap shots in on your enemies. The game is also very generous with health, 1-ups, and energy to recharge your Flash Bolt. However, your Flash Bolt will refill when you punish your enemies, and it doesn't take long either. With my run-through on normal, it was never an issue. There are 3 settings for difficulty, consisting of easy, normal, or justice, which I'm assuming is hard. So the fun still doesn't stop there either. You can also call in one of your Justice League compatriots to do a screen attack if things get out of hand. They consist of Superman, Wonder Woman, and this alien dude I'm not too familiar with. Also, I managed to unlock Green Arrow after 6 stages in. I'm not sure if there are more allies to unlock so they can aid the Flash in his quest, but I wouldn't be surprised. You can choose which ally to use by holding the L button down and using the D-pad to cycle through them. Then simply just press L for assistance. Once you call upon a hero for help, their icon will be gone. But sometimes you can find more icons in the stage or at the beginning of the new set of stages. Each level consists of 3 stages, 2 normal stages, and a boss fight. So in other words, after every boss fight, your heroes will be usable again. So make them count because the hero icons are scarce. Now, with all of the good stuff to say about this game, I do have my gripes. What I'm about to say may sound like a huge issue, but there are ways around it. The hit detection can be really bad at times. You have to be precise. A lot of times, it just feels your attacks don't land when they should. What I did to remedy this was just zip to the enemies and lay it on them. When you zip to an enemy, the game almost always puts you in the correct positioning to attack. This is probably because Flash actually hits the enemy once when he zips to them. Another gripe I have is, as I was saying before, this game reminds me of Ultimate Alliance, so therefore a 2-player option would have been nice via connection cables. And really, I feel this game should have also had a leveling system where you can add points in the stats and even unlock moves. For a GBA game, I don't expect too much, but it would have been nice. Because sometimes just hammering in the same combo over and over can get a bit repetitive. Other than that, This game had me hooked for a few stages, and I plan to go back and finish it as well. With good graphics, great sound, Flash will even talk every now and again, and solid gameplay, Justice League Heroes The Flash runs to the finish line as the best DC game in this review. So there's a few DC games for you. Justice League Task Force for the Sega Genesis, not really that good. And Superman on the Sega Genesis proved to be anything but super. But hey, at least we found a couple of good ones. Batman Returns for the SNES is a formidable beat-em-up, and Justice League Heroes The Flash for the GBA reminds me of the fun hectic gameplay found in Ultimate Alliance. 2 out of 4 isn't bad at all. So, with all that said, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and thank you for helping me get back to the basics.